Alexander had always dreamed of owning property near water. After years of saving from his engineering job on the colonial station orbiting Kepler 442b, he'd finally purchased a modest cabin on the planet's surface, a rare luxury for humans in this sector of space. The real estate agent, a nervous Talvinian with translucent skin, had been oddly insistent about the property's privacy and seclusion. Alexander had assumed it was a selling point. He was wrong. On his third day at the cabin, Alexander decided to explore the forest trail that led to the river his property overlooked. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy of violet-leaved trees, and the air smelled of something like cinnamon mixed with ozone. He followed the sound of rushing water, his boots crunching on the alien undergrowth. When he emerged at the riverbank, he froze. 3 figures were in the water, definitely not human. The first was tall and covered in iridescent scales that shifted between blue and green, with 4 arms and a crest of what looked like coral growing from her head. The second appeared almost feline, with silver fur and a tail that swished above the water's surface. The third was the strangest, a being that seemed to be made of living crystal, refracting the sunlight into rainbow patterns across the river. All 3 turned to stare at him simultaneously. Alexander's hand instinctively went to his cum device, but he stopped himself. They didn't look threatening, just surprised. And very much not wearing clothes, though he wasn't entirely sure if that concept applied to them. Alexander raised his hand slowly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I just bought the cabin up the hill. The scaled one spoke first, her voice melodic but with an undertone like grinding stones. You're the human? They said a human was moving in. They? Alexander asked. The feline being laughed, at least it sounded like a laugh. The Talvinian Real Estate Consortium. They've been trying to sell that property for 3 cycles. We thought they'd given up. Alexander felt his face flush. They didn't mention neighbors. Of course they didn't, the crystalline being said, their voice chiming like wind through glass tubes. Most species find humans unsettling. Wait, what? Alexander blinked. We're unsettling? The scaled one gestured with 2 of her 4 hands. You're Deathworlders. Your planet tried to kill you for millions of years, and instead of dying, you just dead. You eat poison for pleasure. You run for fun. You heal from injuries that would kill most sentient species. We heard a human once fell from orbit and walked away, the feline added, her ears twitching. That's probably an exaggeration, Alexander said, though he remembered reading about that incident. The person had actually broken 17 bones but had survived. Look, I really didn't mean to disturb you. This is obviously your spot. No. The crystalline being stood, water cascading off their geometric form. If you've bought property here, you're a neighbor now. On Crixit, them. This is Zara, they indicated the scaled one, and Mistral. The feline waved. Alexander, he said awkwardly. Him. We bathe here every 7th day, Zara explained. The river has mineral properties that are beneficial for our different biologies. We'd appreciate it if you could perhaps announce yourself next time. Absolutely, Alexander said quickly. I'll just head back, unless you'd like to join us. Mistral's whiskers twitched with what might have been amusement. Alexander felt his ears burn. I appreciate the offer, but humans are kind of weird about communal bathing with strangers. Another Deathworlder quirk? Crixit chimed. You have more social taboos than the entire collective council combined. It's how we survived, Alexander found himself saying. Social cohesion, group dynamics, knowing who's part of your tribe and who isn't. Fascinating, Zara said, and she sounded genuine. We'd heard humans were social creatures. But most species fear you too much to study you properly. Over. The next hour Alexander eventually sat on a rock by the shore while his new neighbors finished their bathing. He learned that he'd bought property in one of the few multi-species settlements on Kepler 442b. Most of the galaxy's species self-segregated, but this region had been designated as an integration zone, an experiment in cross-cultural living. The thing is, Mistral explained as she dried her fur with a device that looked like a glowing wand. Most species heard a human was coming and ... They're afraid of me? Alexander asked, incredulous. Your species once fought a war with the Krex Dominion and won, Crixit said. The Krex had conquered 40 systems. You stopped them with ships held together by, according to the reports, determination and improvised repairs. We call it duct tape, Alexander muttered. See? You even weaponized adhesive strips, Zara said. We're not afraid of you, though. We're scientists, all three of us. We stayed because we wanted to study a human up close. Alexander laughed. So on the research subject now? A neighbor who happens to be fascinating, Mistral corrected. There's a difference. As the violet sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson, Alexander realized something unexpected. He wasn't uncomfortable anymore. These aliens, his neighbors, had seen him as a curiosity, maybe even a potential threat, but they'd chosen to stay. They'd chosen to be open? Same time next week? Zara asked as they prepared to leave. We usually bring food after bathing. You could join us properly clothed if that makes you comfortable. Alexander smiled. I'd like that. As he walked back to his cabin, he thought about the real estate agent's nervousness, the empty neighboring properties, the galaxy's fear of humanity. Humans had earned their reputation as survivors, as fighters, as the species that looked at a hostile universe and said, "Not today." But maybe, Alexander thought, they could also be the species that sat by a river with 3 alien neighbors and simply shared a meal. That seemed very human too.